Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Deputy President David Dabete Mabuza, Ministers and Deputy Ministers and honorable members. Yesterday I omitted to wish Minister Didiza happy birthday during a meeting of one of our cabinet committees. I promised that I would give her chocolate, very delicious chocolate from Ghana. So I am going to deliver chocolate to you from Ghana, Minister. And happy birthday. I'd like to thank all those who participated in the debate and also thank you, Deputy Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to reply to yesterday's debate. True to form, the engagement here was lively, it was robust as usual, and it was a demonstration that our democracy is indeed vibrant and that our perspectives are as diverse as the South African people that we represent in this parliament. It is a matter of great significance and value that this parliament provides space for conflicting views, views that should be aired, debated, and also for competing interests to be mediated. We must never forget how far we have come from the conflict of our horrible past, from the silencing of dissent, and from the banning of legitimate voices of the people of this country. I therefore welcome and appreciate yesterday's debate, not only for what it said, but also for what that kind of debate represents in the life of our country. But while there are areas of public life where we have made a decisive break with our apartheid past, we all know very well that this country's divided and violent history continues to live on in the lives of millions of South Africans. We see it every day, we feel it every day, we touch it every day, and we observe it on an ongoing basis. Several speakers spoke of the difficult, sometimes desperate, conditions under which many of our people live. Over the last 27 years, we have made much to give effect to Madiba's call that the responsibility of government is to redress the centuries of unspeakable privations by striving to eliminate poverty, illiteracy, homelessness, and disease. But as we all know, there is so much more that we need to do, both as government, as our legislatures, both at national and provincial level, as local government. We have a lot of work to do. And it is true that a lot has been done and achieved on the housing side. 5 million subsidized houses and housing opportunities have been provided for the poor in our country since 1994. But still, millions of people live in informal settlements. That should concern us. It is true that the proportion of homes with access to water has really increased from around 60% in 1994 to 88%, almost 90% today. But still, Many of our people do not have access to reliable supply of water or sanitation. That should concern us. It is true that the murder rate per capita in our country has nearly halved in the last 25 years, but still, communities in our country are ravaged by crime, gangsterism, and violence. It is true that 6 million more people are employed now than 25 years ago. But it is also true, as a number of speakers said yesterday, that in the first quarter of this year, the unemployment rate in our country reached its highest level ever. This reality demonstrates the enormous burden of our fractured past, of the depth of deprivation, disempowerment, and deliberate neglect. It demonstrates how difficult it has been to break the cycle of poverty. But we are not only grappling with the undeniable effects of our past, we are also having to confront many of the challenges of the present. The most immediate of these is the impact of COVID-19, which has caused massive damage to economies around the world, and which has set our own economic progress back by a number of years. It has made South Africans poorer, it has made hunger more widespread, and it has directly affected the health and well-being of hundreds of thousands of people in our country. It has made the task of growing an inclusive economy and transforming our society that much more difficult. But it is equally important that we recognize that our own weaknesses and shortcomings have hampered the task of building a new society and achieving a better life for all. We must, as we have done, acknowledge that there have been failures of governance in several areas of government, in municipalities, in departments, both at provincial and national level, and in our state-owned enterprises, and a number of other government entities. As the NPC diagnostic report identified, development has been constrained by poor planning and inadequate coordination. And perhaps the most debilitating of factors has been corruption, nepotism, and patronage in many parts of the state, as well as in the private sector. While we are now aware of the billions that were stolen from state-owned enterprises, there is no form of corruption, no matter how seemingly insignificant, that does not damage society. Corruption is not a victimless crime. It deprives the poor in our country of resources that are rightfully theirs. It starves the economy of investment, in that those who would want to invest in our economy are kept away by the stench of corruption. It leads to a degradation of public infrastructure and services, and tragically, it ultimately does cost lives. This is the context in which the budget vote of the presidency must be understood. It is these challenges that the presidency is determined to address, both those rooted deep in our past and those that manifest themselves today. In the State of the Nation address in February, I compared our nation to the fynbos of our beautiful province, the Cape, which emerges from the most intense flames ever stronger than before. Our country has suffered great devastation. And as COVID-19 continues to spread within our communities, and as it continues to take people's lives, we cannot yet say that we have extinguished the flames of this pandemic. But we will. But what we can say is that we are now seeing some of the green shoots of recovery. We are now seeing signs that the focus of this administration has placed on economic reform, which began before the pandemic, that it is steadily but surely paying off. As a result of the devastation caused by COVID-19, we are starting from a low base. However, most economies and agencies have adjusted their growth projections for South Africa, including the International Monetary Fund, which has revised upwards its projections for our growth from 2.8% to 3.1% for this year. According to the South African Reserve Bank's first financial stability review for this year that was released last week, our economy continues to rebound from last year's recession, albeit at different rates across sectors. By a number of indicators, economic activity is returning to pre-pandemic levels at an encouraging pace. One such indicator is the performance of our currency. The rand is at its best levels since 2019 and is currently outperforming the currencies of our major trading partners. This is being aided by high commodity prices that we are getting for our commodities. Our favorable position as a commodity producer should attract capital inflows and boost the fortunes of domestic producers as well as traders and retailers. Salaries are recovering to pre-pandemic levels. An index of take-home salaries in the private sector shows that typical take-home pay increased by 2.2% after inflation in its most recent reading in April. Aided by low interest rates and some income growth, household demand is picking up, with the growth rate at household credit picking up to pre-pandemic levels. Now, these are interesting indicators. A leading company that provides payment processing services for small businesses reports that the turnover captured by point-of-sale devices is increasing to levels last seen in March 2020. For the first time in 18 years, in 2020 we recorded an annual current account surplus. This was aided by a 270 billion trade surplus last year, the fifth in a row and the highest on record. The trade surplus comes from commodity exports, particularly our platinum, but also from significant agricultural exports. Last year, South Africa recorded its second highest agricultural export earnings on record and is headed for a second bumper year. The manufacturing sector is recovering and expanding at a reasonably faster pace. Despite the impact of the pandemic on the sector globally, automotive component exports increased last year to a record 54 billion rand. Now, these are indicators that some of us look at, that the Minister of Finance looks at continuously, the Governor of the Reserve Bank looks at, to tell us the changes and the moves that are taking place in our economy. Exports of commercial vehicles, especially the so-called heavy commercials like tractors and trucks, are also performing strongly. Mining and manufacturing were also sectors where jobs were created, according to the latest quarterly labor force survey. One of the sectors that has also proven most resilient and fast-growing is the financial services sector. According to the Reserve Bank's Financial Stability Review, examples of improved economic activity in this sector are recovering asset prices that had gone down, they are recovering, the stabilizing of bank loan default rates, and that financial institutions remain well capitalized. Now, these are indicators that we should look at as parliamentarians to see the extent to which a recovery is beginning to happen. That after the fire, the fynbos begins to rise again. This sector also improved on year-on-year basis with regards to job creation, managing to recover 215,000 jobs in the last quarter. Even preceding the pandemic, we have been positioning ourselves as a growing hub for the digital economy, including technology startups. The first African tech ecosystems of the Future Index that was published this year ranked our country first on the continent for economic potential, startup status, and business friendliness. Now, that is something that if we don't celebrate, we should be aware of. We have the second highest number of tech startups in Africa and also receive the highest number of foreign direct investment projects in software and IT service. South Africa is still ranked highly as an export destination for global business services. These are all the priority sectors we have defined in the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan. And it is for that reason that as we observe, we're seeing movement, positive movement going forward. And of course, we would that everyone who has perceptive eyes should be able to look at these indicators and see precisely what is happening in our country, so that our negativity is in some ways softened, lessened by seeing the positives. Because these are not myths, these are positives. These are things that are happening in our economy. We need to acknowledge that a number of important sectors, such as tourism, are still not fully operational, and that a sector like tourism will take time to recover. At the same time, they are also a cause for optimism. What we have to ensure now is that these green shoots that are visible lead to a sustained acceleration in growth. We are keenly aware, as several members said yesterday, that the pace of structural reform needs to speed up. And it is this that the presidency is focused on. The presidency continues to drive the structural reforms that are necessary to overcome bottlenecks that are deterring investment and slowing our progress. In the State of the Nation address, we undertook to address, for instance, the issue of spectrum allocation. The legal case that is underway threatens to delay the progress that we have all anticipated. All social partners in that sector must now work together to ensure speedy and successful implementation of the identified economic stimulus measures. Government has noted and welcomes the extension of the temporary spectrum assignment by ICASA for a further period. However, we would like to see the spectrum allocation finalized without delay. And I appeal to all stakeholders to speedily resolve the litigation that is underway as soon as possible to enable the licensing process to be concluded for the benefit of all South Africans. In SONA, we said that the long-awaited digital migration would proceed and the switch off of analog transmission towers has begun in a number of provinces after a 6-year delay. Significant work is now underway to improve efficiency also at our ports. Transnet has put in place mechanisms to enable greater private sector participation in port management and to attract investment. Transnet freight rail is also working to allow private operators to access the rail network. We said the revised critical skills list would be published, and we have done so, with work underway to ensure that the final list is comprehensive. We said we would work to resolve challenges in the water sector, and following a 12-year delay, we are in the process of establishing the Water Infrastructure Agency. We are also steadily reducing the turnaround time for water use licenses applications, with the average now at 90 days from over 300 days average in the past. We have resuscitated the Renewable Energy Procurement Program, which had previously been stalled. Bid Window 5 to procure 2,600 megawatts of wind and solar power has been opened, with a further bid window of the same size to be opened later in this year. In line with our commitment to electricity regulation reform, municipalities are now allowed to purchase their own power, and discussions are underway to raise the licensing threshold for embedded generation projects. The legal separation of Eskom into separate entities for generation, for transmission, and distribution is on track to meet its deadline of December 2021. Now, through the Bridges program, we are making a difference in the lives of rural communities who need bridges to enable them to travel to work, to access services, and for young children to go to school. Our quest to build a capable state is steadily gaining momentum as previously weakened state institutions are now performing more efficiently. The South African Revenue Service, SARS, has undergone a successful turnaround. Tax collection is exceeding budget estimates for the first time in 5 years. The fight against corruption is also gathering momentum because of improved state capacity and more effective collaboration. Yesterday, the Special Investigation Unit presented a report to SCOPA on its work around COVID-19 procurement. Many of these investigations have been concluded, and the dockets have either been handed over to the NPA or are in the process of being handed over. There have been referrals for disciplinary processes for officials who were involved in corruption. Through the special tribunal, which we established, millions in stolen funds have been recouped and continue to be recouped. Through the work of other entities like the Asset Forfeiture Unit, the NPA Investigative Directorate, the Hawks Cleanup Audit Task Team, there have been arrests, asset forfeitures, and the freezing of bank accounts of those who were involved in malfeasance. This progress is the direct result of the decision of this administration to drive a collaborative and interagency approach that allows all law enforcement agencies to work together and to share information on an ongoing basis. The issue of national health insurance is also in process. At the backbone of the NHI, the health patient registration system has been implemented, and over 50 million South Africans have been registered. Key aspects of the Presidential Health Compact are being implemented, including the placement of interns and community service candidates. In the moratorium, or rather the moratorium for health posts has been lifted, and more than 28,000 statutory and critical posts were filled across all our provinces. Sustaining current levels of growth, as well as meeting our aspirational targets, largely depends on the pace of the vaccine rollout. As the Deputy President said yesterday, we are on track. We have secured sufficient vaccine doses for the entire adult population of our country, and the rollout is gathering pace and is proceeding. We are now at above 70,000 vaccinations a day, and will soon hit 100,000 vaccinations a day. And that is going to keep adding more pace and momentum. We expect the J&J doses will be released soon, unlocking additional supply at a significant level. Our focus now is on making the right decisions and staying the course on reform to restore our economy, attract new levels of investment, create jobs, boost wages, increase opportunities for all South Africans at all levels. The principle is a simple one. When our economy thrives, we all thrive as South Africans. When our economy is better transformed and more transformative, inequality is narrowed. Difficult though the past year has been, our economy has been resilient as well as being durable. And this is as South Africans have also been durable people. Like the green shoots of nature, these developments are a promise, a sign of hope. And that sign of hope needs to keep us going. It is our responsibility, each and every one of us, in this house and across the country, to nurture these green shoots, to enable these green shoots to keep springing up, to give them water and the sunshine and the nourishment. Many of the things that are now underway in our country are of a positive nature. The other day, the Deputy President handed over land to our people here in the Western Cape. And I had the opportunity in Limpopo to also hand over land to our people, together with Minister Didiza and Minister Delil and Minister Nchabeni, and Mutsaledi was there as well. It was a joyous occasion, and it represented progress to those people on the ground. Now, that is how we need to see these green shoots. It is those people in Tafelkop, in Limpopo, Hasikukun, who can see gore go na le tswelopele. Re ntse re ya ko pele a re a ema sebakeng se le seng. Bao ba emeng sebakeng se le seng ba eme fela ba ntse ba goa ba sa fetse. Ke bona bao rona re tswella pele batho ba Sekhukhune ba bone meshumo e botse. And this is precisely what this administration is doing. Every day, the ministers are up and going to serve the interests of South Africans. As this debate has shown, we will differ on how to achieve progress and how to sustain it. We must accept that we will differ on that. Some may offer sincere and constructive criticism, which we accept readily. Some may only offer insults and no constructive anything that they put on the table. But as this presidency, we are determined and willing to join forces with all those in this House and those across society who want to see South Africa recover and grow. Habo bane ba khotodo shumana rine, di bone bane rado shumanabo. Haba bangwe bane ba khosoko ita phosho chipinga chote, re do ba swela nga thungo, ra bvelela phanda na mushumo une ra fana ro ita. We share the sentiments of those who spoke about the need to continue to expand the frontiers of hope. Bakhona labo abebathi mabekhuluma bathi siyalibona ithemba, siyabona ukuthi siyaphi. Labo ke sizimisela ukuthi sisebenze nabo, siqhube nabo. Laba abanye sithi imani ngaseqeleni ngoba nina nenza umsindo nje. Thina sifuna ukusebenza, siye phambili. Now, I was very heartened, really heartened by the words of Honorable Buthelezi when he said, in these dire circumstances, we will be doomed if we abandon hope. Like the outstanding sage amongst us, when he looks to the horizon, he sees hope rising. The man in his 90s, he's seen it all, and he has had it all. But this moment, he say, we dare not abandon hope, because he sees hope rising on the horizon. And I thank him for that. The challenges that we face are immense, but by working together, by staying true to the path of renewal, we will surely reach our destination. And all I will say to my fellow members on the other side, come along, board this train that is moving forward. We will reach our destination. Otherwise, you will be left behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Secretary will read the second order.